Hi everybody, it's lovely to speak to you all today. So I have got my trusty textbook with me. You should have textbook pages already on the Google Classroom, so make sure they're in front of you. Also, I'm going to be using the PowerPoint as well today. We're going to be talking about Risalah, which is to do with prophethood. And make sure you've got all of those things out in front of you, otherwise it's going to be really difficult, you'll be really confused. So let me just get my PowerPoint up in front of me. Okay, guys, so we have got in front of us lesson 4 Risalah. This is all to do with the people that have guided Islam through using the words of Allah. That's really, really important because Allah never directly connects with somebody. He uses the prophets to do so. That's really important. So on your first slide, you can see it's all about people who are inspiring. So it's all to do with what is it that makes somebody inspired by God? What is that? What qualities do you have to possess? What are those things that make you good enough that God is going to talk to you? Allah thinks that you are going to be able to spread the word of Him. Okay, so that's the first slide. Today we want to be able to identify and describe the nature and importance of Risalah. That's AO1 skills that we're using, just basic knowledge. We're then going to identify and explain the key prophets and what they teach Muslims. There are 7 key prophets. They are very, very important, and they go all the way back from the very beginning of creation all the way to the end with Muhammad. We then need to be able to assess why are those prophets most important. AO2, okay, evaluation. I'm going to be mentioning that as we go through. Okay, so what do we think is what do we think are the qualities that somebody needs to be an inspirational leader? They need to be well respected. They need to have good morals. They need to be highly skilled, likable, tend to be, most of these people, they had to get followers somehow. So they had to be nice and likable generally. They have to be motivated. They can't just decide one day they want to follow those rules and then change their mind another day. Resilient, this means that when something gets in your way, when your challenges hit, you don't just give up immediately. A positive mental attitude, being somebody who really, thinks about how to resolve an issue rather than say that they can't possibly fix it, and stand up for the right things and have their voices heard. Okay, so in the images that we've got on the board, there are 3 very inspirational people. One of them starting out with Abraham there and his son. We're going to be speaking about him a little bit more. He's called Ibrahim in Islam. In the middle, we've got Prince Siddhartha, who was the first Buddha, the enlightened one, and then obviously Jesus there on the end. So these people have changed the world. So what is the nature of prophethood for Muslims? Okay. Risalah is also to do with Nubuwah. Okay, so when we're talking about that, they're almost the same sort of thing. In Islam, we have the 6 articles of faith and we have the 5 roots. The 5 roots really focuses on Nubuwah, which is the chain of messengers. The reason it's slightly different is because they kind of believe that there's a further chain beyond what Sunni Muslims would believe with the 6 articles. Okay, so they just believe in the basic prophets. We can see that they pass all the way down. In Christianity, this counts as well. It's all to do with the fact that Jesus is related to Adam, Abraham, King David. All of these things they're all related. Everybody kind of was together. They're kind of doing the same thing. So prophets are messengers of Allah. Okay, it's really, really important. You can't be a prophet if Allah talks to you and then you never share that message. It's essential that that message is shared. That's what makes you a prophet. You go out into the world and you share it. All of the prophets, they showed amazing qualities. Okay, that's really, really important. That is their main thing. Okay, so what is the nature of prophethood? So in Islam, they believe there are over 124,000 different prophets. This is because they believe in the Kutubullah. We will talk about that in a later lesson. That is all to do with all of the holy books, all the way from the very beginning, being Judaism, Christianity, and through to Islam and the Hadiths. So, source of wisdom. Every community has been sent a warner or a prophet. What this means is that Allah has sent somebody to everyone. Okay, that shows how much He loves His creation. His beneficence comes through as part of His nature. He wants everybody to be happy. He wants everybody to be shown the message so that they can all go to Jannah. And that's really essential, because otherwise, without this, he wouldn't be one of his 99 names. In the same way as in Christianity, it's really, really important that Christians believe that Jesus comes down to earth. It means that God has sent him in order to save them. Same thing here with Islam. We have believed in Allah and what has been revealed to us, and what has been revealed to Abraham, Ishmael, and Isaac, and Jacob, and the descendants, and what was given to Moses and Jesus, and what was given to the prophets from their Lord. We make no distinction between any of them. We are Muslims in submission to him. So that means that they are all the same. But the most important one is, of course, Prophet Muhammad, because he is the one who shares the perfect message, hence why we do not need any further. Okay, so we have got on here some exam questions. You may want to pause this here, have a go at the exam questions. State three natures of Risalah. You can then do explain two beliefs of Risalah, explain two reasons. You have got lots of sources of wisdom already in the PowerPoint. I'm going to move forward. So, okay, what do the roles of the prophets teach Muslims? So I'm going to go through all of the prophets now. I will try not to go too quickly, but it's very important that you are taking notes, or you are thinking about all of the different roles that they have played. You must know, as part of your personal learning checklist, at least two key things about each one, mainly one thing that they did, and then perhaps one reason why they're important, or what they've taught a Muslim to do, and then probably a source of wisdom to go with them. Okay, so the first prophet is Adam. He's the first creation. The same as in Christianity. He comes from the very, very beginning. Okay, they believe in the same creation story. There's only a little bit of a difference. We don't need to know about that. So in general, they believe in the same thing. He's considered to be the first Khalifa. Okay, and what that basically means, he's a representative on earth for Allah, and he is the one who the angels kind of talk to. We'll get into angels in a later lesson, but the angels kind of communicate with him. He's the one who sort of like deals with them. Adam was sent to the earth to care for it in the same way Christians believe as well. He's there to care for the earth. Unfortunately, as we know, that they were tempted. Okay, we know they were tempted, both Adam and Eve, and they failed their test in the Garden of Eden. And it is all to do with the AO1 source of wisdom, that Satan made them slip. They were unable, okay, to resist the temptation, because they are able to fail. They're human, and that's part of a human's nature, is that you fail. Okay, it's called fitra in Islam, Fitrah, which is to do with the human nature that you have been given. Okay, so Adam and Eve realized that they were wrong to have listened to Iblis. Iblis is the devil. Okay, he's given another name later, and I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, and he asked for forgiveness. Allah forgave them as he is merciful, and Adam gave Adam his guidance. Those who receive Allah's guidance are his prophets. So what he did is he started to make sure that Adam was given a chance to redeem himself, and he did so. Muslims believe that he built the Kaaba and worshipped Allah. For Muslims, the Kaaba is the most sacred place on earth and is located in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. There's an image on this PowerPoint. It is the big black box that sits in the center of Mecca. If you've seen at the moment, Mecca is completely empty. There should be people there during this time, but it's completely empty for the first time in hundreds and hundreds of years, because obviously nobody is allowed out and everyone's on lockdown. So the story really teaches Muslims that even though we fail, even though we're not perfect, it's important that we redeem ourselves, and that you say that you're sorry and you ask for forgiveness. Allah is forgiving. He is all forgiving as part of his nature, and he is all merciful, and he wants his creation to be good. So that's essential to the understanding of what's happened between him and Adam. But it's not the case that God forgave them just because he wanted to. It's more to do with Allah required Adam to really earn that trust back, and that's what he did. Okay, next one. Okay, Ibrahim, okay, also known as Abraham to us. So I'll give you a brief thing about the story, which is also on the PowerPoint here. So to do with this, it's all about basically that Abraham was tasked with recreating the religion. Okay, so religion's kind of gone a little bit wrong. Creation is all sort of being sinful and doing whatever they wanted to do. And Abraham is tasked with bringing that back. Okay, so they were celebrating many gods at the time, okay, which got polytheism, and this is wrong. Okay, we know this because it's part of the six beliefs and the five roots to believe in Tawhid, which is the oneness of Allah. Abraham rejected this and he knew that there was one God, and because of his faith, he was rewarded with a son. Him and his wife Sarah, they did not have a son, and they desperately wanted one. Abraham was quite old at this point, and so was Sarah. So it was really a miracle that she was given a child, and that Abraham was as well. He really honored his son. He loved his son very much, and Allah told him that it is his test. He must test himself, and that he was basically, if he wanted to have this agreement, or what was called a covenant, which is a promise with God, what you must do is he must kill his son. Okay, and when he does that, he takes him to a mountain and he takes his son, and he ensures basically that his son would die in that situation. It depends on which version you're reading, and there are lots of different ways, but what happens is in this story is Allah steps in and makes sure that he is not killed. Okay, and he is rewarded with being the founder of Judaism. Now, Muslims obviously do not believe that Judaism is Islam, but it's the beginnings of it. So it says, a source of wisdom, Abraham was not a Jew nor a Christian. He was true in faith and bowed his will to God's, which is Islam. So Islam really means peace, and Muslim means submission to that. So to really give your whole self and your soul to that cause. And then on him, he was thankful for the blessings of God who chose him and guided him to straight path. So it's the fact that it was really important, obviously, that he was guided. So for Muslims, they believe, and the most essential thing is that Abraham really had full faith in Allah. He knew that Allah wasn't even if he killed his son, that he would be rewarded in some other way, or that Allah would make it okay in the end. And that faith has paid off. That's why he is given this gift of being the founder of a religion and the founder of a faith. And he's celebrated throughout Islam. They have a special celebration which is called Eid al-Adha, where they celebrate it. It's called the Festival of Sacrifice, and they celebrate this story for the whole thing. Okay, so moving on. Ishmael, okay, or Ibrahim's son, and an ancestor of Muhammad's. He and his mother were brought to Mecca by Ibrahim. He was chosen to rebuild the Kaaba in Mecca. Okay, so this is really important. So we already know that Adam was one of the first ones to create the Kaaba. What's happened over time, as we know, polytheism has come to pass, and the Kaaba is filled with idols. And Abraham goes and he sort of like overhauls it along with Ishmael. Abraham had a vision from Allah that he was sacrificing Ishmael. When Ibrahim told his son, he offered his life. Just as Ibrahim was about to sacrifice his son, Allah called out to stop him and praise them both for their dedication. So what's really important here is obviously Ibrahim is told that he needs to kill his son, as we've discussed, and Ishmael says, that's okay, I'm going to give my life. I'm going to give my life because it will all be all right. There's a clip there for you to have a little look at. But what's really important is that the story is not meant to be taken literally. The story does not teach Muslims to go and kill their children if they hear a voice in their head, nothing like that. Okay, the story is about dedicating your faith. It's about trust. It's about the fact that you might be suffering, you might have to do something difficult, but ultimately Allah has a plan for you and it will all be okay in the end, is the general idea. And it's about being dedicated. Okay, next one. Okay, Musa, or Moses, so story of Moses. He is born to a Jewish woman, and she, in order to protect him, puts him into a basket. Hence why we have the phrase Moses basket. He goes down the river and he is found by an Egyptian princess, and she takes him home and raises him. He realizes at a later date that he is actually a Jew or an Israelite at that time, and they want to be free. They want to be free of what's happening, okay, because they are currently slaves. Jews are slaves at that time, or they're being treated terribly. The Israelites are being treated terribly. He is spoken to by Allah, and he is told that he needs to set the people free, and he does this through a mixture of steps. I'm sure you know the plagues of Egypt and so on. The key thing about this, the importance here, is that he is later given the Ten Commandments, and these make up the most important rules within Judaism and Christianity. They are important within Islam. I don't think anybody would, disagree with the rules in general, but they're really the key principles of both Judaism and Christianity. The Ten Commandments are the basics. There are 5 commandments for God and 5 commandments for man. He's appointed by Allah to free the Israelites. He was famous for the miracles such as parting the Red Sea. The Torah is also gifted to him at a later date. It's called the Torah in Arabic. Now, the Torah is the first part of the Jewish section of the Bible, so that's essential to those bits of faith. Muslims believe that Musa teaches how Allah rewards perseverance in the face of suffering, and how always good will overcome evil. And also, the Ten Commandments are a guide as to how to reach paradise. Whether you are Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, your aim is to be in paradise with your God at some point, whichever one you call it. And in this case, it's to be in Jannah with Allah. Okay, so David, Dawood. So David killed Goliath, and God gave him sovereignty and wisdom. Now, David, the story of him, he's a young boy, he's a shepherd, and his brothers are off at war. They are fighting on the side of the Israelites. The other side is a group called the Philistines, and they have on their team some giants, okay? And everybody is terrified of these, and they know they're going to be overcome. David is asked to go and to look over what's been happening. His father asked him, will you go and see that your brothers are okay? Will you go and check on them? So he goes to do so. And he hears the battle, and he hears what's happening, and he hears about this giant called Goliath. And he realizes that he really has to step in at this point, because he believes that God has kept him safe all the times that he's been out as a shepherd. Now, back, we're talking over 2,000 years ago now. So when we're thinking about this, the world would have been a much more dangerous place. There would have been wild animals and things like that. And David believes that Allah has protected him through all of this. There is a special book which is in the Old Testament, and it's called Psalms, and it's all about David. Okay. David is successful. He kills the giant using a rock and a slingshot. And this is very, very important, because it kind of shows how even when the odds are stacked against you, you can still win if you have God on your side. They always consider the Psalms to sort of be poetry, and they are kind of a beautiful way of looking at the world. And it really is important that David becomes king, and that he continues to be in God's light for the entirety of his reign, even though he does have troubles towards the end. It confirms for Muslims that Allah will honor the chosen ones, and that they will be blessed with both worldly and spiritual honor. He's given a chance, obviously, to be a prophet, which is one of the most essential things that anybody could ever possibly want. And also, he's created, and he's a king because of his bravery and the fact that he trusted in God. Okay, Isa, Jesus, I'll try not to talk about this for too long, but he's obviously incredibly important. The key thing here that you must know is that Muslims do not believe that Jesus is God on earth. They do not believe that he is God incarnate. They do not believe in the incarnation. He is just a man. He is just a prophet. Okay, this is very, very important, because otherwise their faith in Tawhid would not work. In Christianity, there is the Trinity, but in Islam, it is just the faith in Tawhid, the one God. Okay, so Jesus is among the most honored prophets of Allah. He the Gospels are called the Injil, and they are the 4 sections, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, okay, and they tell the story of Jesus. It's really, really important. He really, really teaches how to love and how to be kind and how to have a moral code whilst on earth, and that it's not about fighting, it's not about harming others, it's about being kind to one another. If everybody followed the golden rule of treat others how you wish to be treated, then in which case you would never have any difficulties. If everybody was kind to one another, there would be no war or conflict. Muslims agree that his birth was miraculous, as he did not have a biological father, but he was not God. He did not die on the cross as Allah saves him. So they don't believe that he died and was resurrected, because otherwise that would cause some confusion as to the nature of him. He is still just a man in the same way that Prophet Muhammad is. Muslims are taught that Isa honored Tawhid, and they must follow the example and worship of Allah. So they try to follow some of the principles, the general principles of his life, but they do not worship him in any different way to anybody else. Okay, so Muhammad is the most essential prophet in all of Islam. So Muhammad is the father of the Islamic Empire, was called to be a prophet at the age 40 in 610. So this is quite a long time after Jesus, 610 years roughly after Jesus. He was known before being a prophet as being someone who was extremely fair, very, very moral, had a good moral code, knew what he needed to do. There are many references in the Quran to the messenger of Allah. These references show that Muhammad was called by Allah to bring the final message to humanity. Source of Wisdom, AO1, he is an excellent model. Really important that everybody understands that even before it came to pass that he was a prophet, he wasn't he was a really perfect person. He tried really, really hard to be fair. Also, as an essential thing, Prophet Muhammad lived in both poverty and luxury in different times within his life, and that really changed his perspective on how to be kind to others and how to treat others. Muhammad was the perfect Muslim, and so the way he lived his life was perfect and should always be followed. The messages of the prophets were forgotten and distorted over time. So as things were written down, as they were translated, as some of them were not written down and they were only passed on by word, they were incorrect. So the angel Jibril, he is sent to Muhammad on the night of power. This is an essential occasion. It's called Laylat al-Qadr, and it is the key event which creates Islam. When he speaks to him, he's asked to read 3 times, and he cannot read, as Prophet Muhammad has not been educated in that way. And the angel Jibril puts the whole of the Quran onto his soul in one moment. So it's in that one moment that he has all of the words. It takes him 23 years to recite it. Quran as a word means recitation. He never writes it himself. He never writes down a word. He tells other people and they write it. And it's his words, and they are gradual revelations as they go through. There are actually 4 references to Muhammad in the actual Quran. That's quite important because we don't hear about his story generally in the Quran, because obviously it's the word of God. Muhammad is the final prophet. There will be no others. He is the final example, and this means that he is a seal, the last one, the perfect one. He is portrayed as being a great teacher and as a light. He has his own set of books, and they are called the Hadiths, and they are the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. Okay, exam practice. Muhammad is the only prophet a Muslim needs. What you would really need to think about there is you need to think about all the reasons that somebody might think that Muhammad would be an amazing prophet. What is it that makes him absolutely incredible? Then you need to think about, is that a fair argument? Why do they need other prophets if Muhammad is the perfect one? What is it about your argument that's not quite as good there? That would be AO2. You're going to evaluate what is it that means that they needed the other ones. Then on the other side, I would suggest that you choose one of the other really important prophets that you think teach something fantastic. You choose one and you say, well, actually, I think this is a really important message that's been passed through. Maybe it could be Abraham, that you are to have faith throughout your life, even when you're experiencing difficulties, and that you are, no matter what, to believe in Allah. you think, okay, that's really, really good, but what's not so good about that review? Well, what's not so good about it could be that he was told as a test to kill his son, and he believed so much in Allah that he was willing to do that. And is that a good quality that we want in somebody? It's a good quality perhaps in a prophet. Is it a good thing that some people, that everybody should learn? Probably not, because in some respects it can become a bit of a problem, obviously. And I think you can use the plan that Miss Marable has put up here. You have the grade descriptors. I would suggest using that. Please do not forget to use AO1, and use lots and lots of facts, and use lots and lots of quotations. You need to embed your quotations into what you're saying. You don't always need to use, for example, you could just use a chunk of a bit of a quotation and embed it in as you would in English. That would be fantastic. Using all of those English skills that you already have would be amazing. I have also put on the Google Classroom, it should be under resources, I think, in classwork, there are A3 sheets of plans, which my classes, if you're listening to me, have already seen. If you don't know how to use those, you want to know how to use them, please drop me an email. I don't mind going through it, and maybe I'll do a Google lesson about it or something like that. I think that it's really important that you're using a plan when writing. For most students, when I'm looking at their work, lack of a plan makes a massive difference. If you plan what you're going to put first, you'll find that you don't run out of information. Lots of you either just sort of like not giving equal sides of the argument and so on. Make sure that you're thinking about the appraisal and the AO2. You cannot get higher than a level 2 without it. So that's really, really essential, guys. Okay, so I do believe that I'm going to be planning some sort of lesson for you quite soon. I cannot remember when the next one is. So I look forward to chatting to you all really soon. Thank you, guys.